And so it is our prayer that God will raise up pastoral leadership there in the community.
The final thing we want to tell you about is really the kind of the cornerstone of Ralph and Alita's ministry. They work with an organization called Give to Give Hope. It's a relatively small child sponsorship program. Currently, they have 375 kids. Small compared to like the ones we might be familiar with, like Compassion International. But there are some real advantages to sponsoring a kid through a small organization. These kids are getting personalized attention from Ralph and Alita. It was amazing how they know every child's name. They know the parents. They know how many kids are in the home, how the child is doing in school. They visit regularly in these families' homes. They can screen families who apply for true need. So you really are getting these people on the ground to make sure that the program is effective. For $35 a month, you are providing 2 large bags of food to each sponsored child. It's probably 40 or 50 pounds, would you say, of food that goes. And the entirety of that money is the food bags that they're spending right now, they cost $36. And Ralph is trying to negotiate with the grocer to get it down $1 or $2 so they can stay within their budget. But that money is going to go entirely to the child's needs. There aren't administrative costs that are going to be taken out of it. Ralph and Alita have raised their own support. The organization has other means for those things. So when you sponsor a child, every dollar you give goes directly to benefit that child. And the program has several requirements too. One of which I've mentioned is the requirement that if you're going to be sponsored, you have to stay in school. And so many kids are staying in grade school. Some are going on to high school. For kids who graduate from 9th grade, and high school really isn't. I saw it's one high school in the whole town, and it's scary looking. There's like thousands of kids who all go to this one high school. And some kids high school may not be their thing. There's a trade school that's run by another missionary couple, and kids can go to the trade school and learn computer skills. They can learn English because if you're bilingual even a little bit, that opens up a lot of doors of opportunities for jobs. Some of the kids learn sewing, and they can work in a textile factory. There's a number of programs that the trade school can offer, but kids stay in school as long as they're sponsored. And the other requirement is that a family member for each child has to come and volunteer in this once a month food preparation and distribution. So they want these families to have ownership. It's not just I come and get food. There's relationship building, and there's ownership on the part of these families to be a part of this. So this food packing operation that they do once a month, it's a kind of a 4-day effort. And Ralph and Lita have done it for a while, and there's really a system down. Early in the morning, Ralph goes into town and comes back with a truck full of groceries, and he does this on Thursday and on Friday. A lot of people show up and start unloading the truck, and then you'll see in the next picture they're carrying big bags of rice and beans. There's all kinds of groceries that are being carried, brought in. And then after that, there's a group of tables with a measuring scale where they weigh out 5-pound bags of rice and 5-pound bags of beans that are going to go to each family. And even the little kids get involved. You can see this little boy, Erickson, the 5-pound bag of rice would be filled up, and then with a big smile, he just carried off to where the the bags were going to be packed, and there was several children. And he was a hard worker the entire couple hours that they were doing. He was just back and forth carrying bags of rice and beans, helping out in this whole endeavor. And then there's a group where women are bagging up. They get a bar of soap, some laundry soap, and toothpaste. So those go into some plastic bags to separate them from the food. Then there's a picture in the church's fellowship hall. There are bags. They have 375, and each family gets 2 bags. So it's a lot of bags that they lay out, and then they have a system, and you can see there's lots of helpers helping to put into the bag everything that's needed. And in each bag, they get 5 pounds of rice, 5 pounds of beans, 5 pounds of wheat flour, 5 pounds of corn flour, sugar, salt, eggs, shelf-stable milk, canned meat, spaghetti, ramen soup, cornflakes, oatmeal, some juice boxes, and a package of cookies, in addition to the soap, laundry soap, and toothpaste. so you can see they're really full bags that they have, and then they do that for 2 days to get that all the bags finished, and then on Saturday, the second Saturday of every month, is the day of the food distribution. And families line up out in front of the building you see is the roof of the church, and families line up. Starts at 9 a.m., but by 7 a.m. there were families out there lined up, getting ready to wait in line. This was happened to be a very rainy day, with threatening rain, and so that morning, Ralph and Alita and Kurt and I were sitting at the breakfast table praying that God would hold the rain off during the food distribution, because that could make it very difficult for these families to pick up their food and haul it home in the rain. In addition to people lined up, there were motorcycles. I saw one family where there was a little boy and a dad and another child and a mom and 50 pounds of groceries on a motorcycle. And yeah, and then they have these little, you can't really see, it's in the background, little vehicles called tuk-tuks. And it's kind of a motorcycle engine where the driver, and then a little covered bench on the back. And the tuk-tuks, they all knew that that it was distribution day and that it was kind of rainy, so they were there, and for a small amount of money, a family could hire one of them to haul their groceries home for them. But when the distribution starts, one family at a time is let in. They come and meet with Alita. Alita checks up on their school, sees how they're doing, makes sure that the paperwork is all as it should be, and then deals with issues like there was one child whose sponsor had passed away, and she had to tell this child that their sponsor had died. There was, I told you, the other girl who said she was dropping out of school to live with her boyfriend and was dropping out of the program. So there's all those kinds of things to deal with. And then Alita gives each family a ticket. They leave the church and go over to the fellowship hall. Kurt was at the door talking with families, because there's a little line there, and one at a time they come in. So he was taking tickets and greeting and talking with kids for a while. And then they come into the gym and find Ralph, and Ralph is there to greet every kid again by name. Ralph is a little bit of a jokester, so he tells jokes to the kids, and they all laugh and gives hugs. And then the family takes the 2 bags of groceries and goes out the door, and there's some benches there, and then they have to bring their own bags, because they found that these bags were not always getting returned. So they have to transfer the groceries into their own bags so they can haul them home. And really, I don't know how some of them did it. There were some young moms, single moms with a baby, and somehow she's going to carry 50 pounds of groceries, sometimes well over a mile, the service area that they have where these families are from. So this is very meaningful. It meets a significant need for these families. And so this particular month giveaway in January, they were doing their Christmas gift giveaway. And part of the reason for doing that in January is that everything goes on sale right after Christmas. So they get a really more bang for their buck in giving kids gifts. This is, they raise extra money to pay for a small gift for each child. And these kids many of them are just delighted. This was baby Laura, and she got a little baby doll. And some of the kids get the gift, and they're very stone-faced about it. And then they turn away, and their face just have big grins because they're so excited, but they didn't quite want to show it. And then others of them are hopping up and down, so excited with the gift that they got. There's 3 kids who got some gifts, and like I said before, they're happy to have their picture taken. And then this last picture is the little girl who was playing with the microphone during church, Daniela, the little girl who had Down syndrome. She got a Barbie doll, and she was just posing with the Barbie doll. She was like, take more pictures, take more pictures. And Alita took a great picture of Daniela. But, you know, there are children like Daniela, and there are many, many, many more children who are available to be sponsored. While we were there, several families, young women came to sign their child up so that Alita could put them on the website in the hopes that they might get a sponsor as well. Kids are added regularly to the sponsor list. Alita is just not only is she an amazing photographer, she's a master communicator. And so she makes sure that sponsors are able to stay in touch with their children. You get 2 letters every year that your child writes a letter. Ralph translates all of them, 375 letters, and then Alita emails them to you, so you get a letter from your child twice a year. You can send emails back if you have a sponsored child, and Alita will translate it and send the letter or give the letter to your child. And sponsors can also provide some limited extras. They wear uniforms in school. And for about $30 to $35, a child can get the full uniform. But that's tough for some families. So a sponsor can give an extra gift um, to help kids with school uniforms or school supplies that they need in order to stay in school. And so seeing this up close just really was, um, it's hard to put it, it really is truly hard to put it into words, but sponsoring a child can really change a child's life forever. And I don't think we have any real conception of what God can do when we choose generosity and choose to help the least of these. It reminds me of James in chapter 1 at the end of it. True religion is helping widows and orphans in their need. And so to end this presentation, I want to tell you a story of a little boy named Darling Isak. That was his name, Darling Isak. He was 8 or 9 years old. And Darling Isak had a cousin, Jackie. And Jackie was a sponsored child. And Jackie's sponsor came to Honduras to visit. They often have teams that come in. And if you happen to have a sponsored child, they'll make an arrangement so that you can actually visit your sponsored child. And Jackie's sponsor had brought some gifts, school supplies and that sort of thing, and a photo of herself for her sponsored child. So her sponsored child could have a picture of the woman who was her sponsor. And so all the children had gathered around because, like Kurt said, when there's a gringo around, it draws a crowd. And they were also very curious to see what gifts Jackie's sponsor had brought to her. And that's why Darling Isak was there, along with to see what gifts his cousin had been given. And so the gifts were laying on a table. And after a while, everybody's kind of talking. And Alita was observing this little boy. And he walked over to the table. And he was looking at the gifts and the photo of the sponsor, and he picked up that photo and he just gazed into that photo, and then he reached down and kissed it. That tells you how meaningful it is that these children have so much love in their hearts and gratitude that people here are willing to maybe make a few sacrifices. You might find, for some of us, $35 a month might be fine. God has provided us the extra to be able to do that. Maybe you're on a fixed income and that you don't have the resources to do that. Maybe you can pray and ask God for someone. Maybe you can share a child with somebody. You and someone else can get together and sponsor one child if you felt like your income wasn't sufficient to meet your basic needs. But you will be blessed and you will reap eternal rewards when you are helping those who are most in need. And so I would just really encourage you to consider partnering with Give to Give Hope and Ralph and Alita in Honduras. And if the Spirit has perhaps laid that on your heart today, in the back on the connection ledge, you'll see a number of cards like this. And it's got a picture of a child who is waiting for a sponsor. I think, did you say, Kurt, one of those cards says the child has been waiting for 10 years for a sponsor. And it tells you a little bit about the child and their family, and then it gives you information about where you can go online to Give Hope and sponsor a child. So I would just encourage you to think about and pray about whether God would have you impact the life of a child by sponsoring them. And then I think the last thing I'd like to say is thank you so much to all of you who prayed for us while we were gone. It was a wonderful trip. It was challenging in some ways. It was unsettling in some ways. And yet it was amazing to see what God is doing in another part of the world. And to partner with some people in ministering to people and to see God answering prayers. Really, we had 6 flights, 3 flights to get there and 3 flights to get back. And every single one of them was right on time without any hitches. And so thank you for our prayers about traveling. I know that was an answer to prayer because traveling is crazy these days. You never know what's going to happen. I really did fairly well with some health-related things other than the leeches that I ate. But as far as the headaches and some of that trouble, God was very gracious to help me through that. We just saw so many answers to prayer during our time there. And we knew that you guys were back here praying for us, and we're very, very grateful for that. So consider sponsoring a child.